Alex walked through the crowded streets of the city, his hands deep in his jacket pockets to keep out the cold. It was a chilly evening, and the neon lights flickered above the sidewalks, casting strange shadows on the faces of the people walking by. The city was always busy, filled with noise and movement. But to Alex it always felt lonely, like the city didn't care about anyone. He glanced down at the last credit in his wallet. He had spent most of his money on food earlier that day. There was barely enough to get through the week, but it didn't matter anymore. Alex wasn't even sure why he was still trying. Life was tough. Sometimes it felt like the world didn't care about people like him. As he walked toward the corner of the street, something caught his eye. At first, he thought it was just another beggar. But then, as he looked closer, he saw that it wasn't a human at all. The figure sitting hunched over, shaking in the cold, had pale blue skin, almost glowing under the streetlights. Her small, pointed ears stuck out from her messy hair, and her hands were tightly wrapped around her knees as she shivered violently. Alex stopped in his tracks. He had never seen anyone like her before. She looked fragile, lost, and completely out of place. Her clothes were torn, and it seemed like she had nowhere to go. Alex's heart softened, and without thinking, he walked over to her. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked softly. The woman looked up at him, her eyes wide and filled with fear. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at him, as if unsure whether to trust him. Alex could see the pain in her eyes, the uncertainty that anyone would help her. I can't help you much," Alex said, pulling his wallet from his pocket. "But I have 1 credit left. I'll get you a warm drink, okay?" The woman hesitated, but Alex didn't mind. He could feel the cold in his own bones, and it pained him to think about her out here, shivering in the dark. He wasn't sure if she understood him, but the way she looked at him seemed to say that she needed help. He walked to the nearby vendor who sold hot drinks, using the last of his money to buy a large cup of steaming tea. When he returned, he knelt down in front of her, offering the drink to her. "Here," he said, "this should help warm you up." The woman looked at the drink for a moment, her fingers trembling as she reached out. Slowly, she took the cup from his hands. She brought it to her lips and sipped carefully, as though the warmth was a blessing she hadn't expected. Alex sat down beside her, keeping a little distance, but still close enough to make sure she didn't feel completely alone. "I'm Alex," he said after a moment of silence. "What's your name?" She blinked at him. Her voice, when it came, was soft, almost like a whisper. "Lyra," she said, her accent strange, unlike anything Alex had heard before. I don't know where I am." Lyra's voice cracked, and Alex could see the pain in her eyes again. He could tell that she wasn't just cold, she was lost, confused, and scared. Her clothes were ragged, and she seemed like she had been wandering the streets for a long time. "I don't know where I am either," Alex said with a small chuckle, trying to lighten the mood. "But you're in luck. I know a place with a warm bed, and I can help you get there." Lyra's eyes flickered with doubt. "But why would you help me? A stranger?" Alex shrugged. "Sometimes people need help. You look like you could use it." For a moment, Lyra didn't respond. She simply stared at the tea in her hands, unsure whether to trust him. But Alex wasn't going to leave her here, alone in the cold. He didn't care that she was from another world. He could see she needed someone. He knew he had to be that person. "Come on," Alex said, standing up. "You don't have to stay out here. You can come with me. It's not much, but it's warmer than the street." Lyra looked at him again, her eyes filled with confusion. She was clearly afraid, but she saw something in Alex, something that made her trust him, just enough to take a step forward. "I'll follow you," she said quietly. And with that, Alex took the first step toward his apartment with Lyra walking quietly beside him. He wasn't sure what had brought him to this moment, or why he felt so strongly about helping her. But one thing was clear, this wasn't the end of their story. As they walked, the streets felt a little less cold. Maybe it was the warmth of the tea. Maybe it was the small spark of hope that had started to flicker in Alex's heart. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel so alone. As Alex and Lyra walked through the cold streets, Alex couldn't help but notice how different she was from anyone he had ever met. Her blue skin seemed to shimmer faintly in the dim light of the street lamps, and her small, pointed ears twitched. Every now and then, as if listening to sounds Alex couldn't hear, her movements were slow, and she looked around nervously, as though she had never been to a city like this before. "I'm sorry, it's not much," Alex said, trying to make the best of the situation. "But I live in a small apartment. At least you won't have to sleep outside." Lyra gave him a small, hesitant smile. "I'm grateful. You've been kind to me. No one's ever been kind like this." Alex felt a pang in his chest. Couldn't imagine what it must have been like for her to feel so alone, so out of place. He had his own struggles, but at least he had a home, even if it was small and humble. Lyra had nothing, no place to go, no one to turn to. When they reached his apartment building, Alex led the way up the stairs to his floor. His apartment was simple, with barely enough furniture to fill the small space. A worn-out couch, a small table, and a bed pushed against the far wall. It wasn't much, but it was warm and safe, and that's all he could offer. "Here we are," Alex said, unlocking the door. He stepped inside and held it open for Lyra to follow him. She hesitated for a moment before entering. As she stepped inside, she looked around the room, taking in the small, modest space. There were no decorations, no luxury, just the basics. "This is ... Lyra's voice trailed off as she seemed to take it all in. "It's better than I imagined." Alex smiled, though it felt a little bittersweet. "I can't offer you much, but it's a roof over our heads." He led her to the couch and motioned for her to sit. Lyra sank down onto it carefully, her face still full of uncertainty. She looked so fragile, so far from the confident alien she probably was back home. She was a stranger in a strange world. Alex couldn't help but wonder how she had ended up so far from her home. "You should get some rest," Alex said. "I know you must be tired." Lyra nodded but didn't say anything. She looked exhausted, her eyelids drooping as she leaned back on the couch. Alex went to the small kitchen to make some food, but his mind kept drifting back to her. He didn't know why he was helping her. She wasn't like anyone he'd ever met. She was different, mysterious, and from a completely different world, but there was something about her that drew him in. Something that made him want to protect her, to make sure she was safe. After a few minutes, he returned to the living room with some simple food, a bowl of soup and some bread he had left over. He placed the bowl on the small table beside the couch. "Here," he said gently, "you should eat something. It's not much, but it'll help." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes full of gratitude. She slowly took the bowl, her hands trembling slightly as she ate. Alex watched her closely. There was a quiet sadness in her eyes, a depth of emotion that told him there was so much more to her story than she had shared. "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" Alex asked softly, breaking the silence. Lyra stopped eating for a moment, her gaze falling to the floor. She seemed to struggle with the words. "I've lost everything. My people. My ship. I don't know how I ended up here." Alex sat down across from her, his heart aching for her. Couldn't even imagine what she had been through. "You're not alone anymore. I'll help you, whatever it takes." Lyra looked up at him then, her eyes wide and filled with a mixture of hope and disbelief. "You'd really help me?" Alex nodded. "Of course. I don't know what's going on with you, or where you come from, but I know you need help. And I'm not going to leave you out here to figure it out on your own." For the first time since they met, Lyra allowed herself to smile, a small, quiet smile, but one that spoke volumes. She had been alone for so long, and now, in this strange city, she had found someone who was willing to help her. It was a small comfort, but it was enough for now. She finished her meal in silence, and Alex watched her with a growing sense of protectiveness. He couldn't explain why he felt this way, but he knew that he couldn't just walk away from her. She was alone, scared, and lost in a world that wasn't her own. And for reasons he couldn't understand, he had to help her. After she finished eating, Alex offered her a blanket and a pillow. "I'll sleep on the couch. You can have the bed for the night." Lyra hesitated for a moment before nodding. She looked exhausted, and Alex could see that she needed rest more than anything else. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice full of gratitude. Alex gave her a soft smile. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do next." Lyra settled down on the bed. Alex sat on the couch, keeping his distance, but feeling strangely connected to her. The night was quiet, and the cold city outside seemed far away, placed by the warmth of the apartment and the quiet companionship they shared. For the first time in a long while, Alex didn't feel so alone. The morning light crept through the small window of the apartment, casting soft shadows across the room. Alex woke up on the couch, the old fabric creaking as he shifted to sit up. The sound of slow, steady breathing caught his attention, and he turned his head to see Lyra still fast asleep on the bed. She looked peaceful, almost serene, and for a moment, Alex could see a side of her he hadn't noticed before: her vulnerability, the exhaustion that still lingered from the previous night. He couldn't imagine how much she had gone through to end up here, on a strange planet in a world so different from her own. Alex stretched and got up quietly, not wanting to disturb her. He walked over to the small kitchen area to make breakfast. The room was still cool from the night, but he didn't mind. It was a little colder than usual in the morning, but Alex had learned to deal with it. He'd grown up in a place where warmth was never guaranteed, and now, with Lyra in his life, that fact seemed even more important. He quickly made some simple eggs and toast, taking extra care with the food, knowing that Lyra must be hungry. He'd seen her eat the meal he'd given her last night, but it was clear that she was still weak and needed more than just a warm drink, as the smell of breakfast filled the apartment. Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of calm. For the first time in a long while, the emptiness of the apartment didn't bother him. The quiet seemed less lonely now that he had someone to share it with, Evan, if she was still a stranger. After a few minutes, Lyra stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a moment she looked confused, as though she didn't know where she was. But then her gaze settled on Alex, and she seemed to remember. "Good morning," Alex said with a small smile. Lyra sat up slowly, her back straightening as she rubbed her eyes. "Good morning," she replied, her voice still soft. I didn't mean to fall asleep like that. You needed rest," Alex said. "I made some breakfast. I didn't know what you liked, so I just made something simple." Lyra looked down at the food with a quiet appreciation. "I'm not used to this kind of food. Where I come from, we have different ways of eating, but I'm sure this is good." Alex wasn't sure what she meant, but he nodded and handed her a plate. "I'm sure it'll be fine. Just take it slow." Lyra took the plate from him and picked at the food, eating slowly. Alex watched her carefully, noticing the way her hand shook slightly as she brought the fork to her mouth. She was trying to hold herself together, but Alex could see that she was struggling. She was strong, but even the strongest people had their limits. After a few bites, Lyra put the plate down and sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I didn't expect to be here," she said softly, almost to herself. "I didn't think I'd be stranded on a strange planet with no way to get back home." Alex sat down across from her, his eyes full of concern. "You don't have to do this alone," he said gently. "I'm here to help." Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. "I don't want to be a burden to you. You've already helped me more than I deserve." "You're not a burden," Alex replied firmly. "I want to help. I know exactly what's going on with you, but I know you're not like everyone else. And maybe that makes it harder, but I won't let you face it alone." Lyra's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but she quickly blinked them away. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't know how much that means to me." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared thoughts hanging between them. Alex had never been good at opening up to people, but something about Lyra made him want to tell her more. Maybe it was because he saw so much of himself in her: the loneliness, the fear of being forgotten. "They were both strangers in their own ways, you know," Alex said after a while. "I'm not perfect either. I've been struggling for a while now. It feels like nothing ever changes, but maybe this is different. Maybe helping you is what I needed." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. "You're not alone either. Not anymore. You've given me more than anyone else would have." "I just don't understand," Alex said, his voice dropping slightly. "You. Why are they after you?" Lyra's face darkened at the question, her shoulders tensing as if she was bracing herself for something. "It's complicated," she said, her voice quieter now. "I come from a place where knowledge is power. I carry knowledge that could change everything. But not everyone wants that knowledge out in the open. Some would kill for it. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. So people are after you because of what you know? Lyra nodded slowly. And they won't stop until they get it. I don't know how long I'll be safe here. Alex stood up, his fists clenched. Then we won't let them find you. Not while I'm around. We'll figure this out together. For the first time since meeting Lyra, Alex felt truly certain about something. He couldn't explain why, but he knew that protecting her was the right thing to do. There was something special about her, something worth protecting. She wasn't just some alien stranded on Earth. She was someone who had been through more than most people could imagine. And yet here she was, still fighting. I'll help you, Lyra, Alex said, his voice firm. I'll stand by you, no matter what. Lyra smiled faintly, a quiet relief washing over her. Thank you, she whispered. For the first time, Alex saw a spark of hope in her eyes. It was small, but it was there. And for the first time in a long time, Alex believed that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. Alex and Lyra spent the next few days in relative peace. The apartment, though small and modest, became their safe haven. Alex kept to his routine, going out to work during the day, while Lyra stayed inside, resting and adjusting to her new surroundings. They didn't talk much about her past, at least. Not yet, but Alex could sense the fear that lingered in her eyes. Every time a vehicle passed by the window, or someone knocked at the door, Lyra would tense up as if expecting trouble. Alex didn't blame her. She had been through more than anyone should have to endure. He often found himself wondering about the world she came from, about the people who were chasing her, and why they would want someone like Lyra. But he kept those questions to himself for now, knowing that she wasn't ready to talk about it. One evening after another, quiet day, Alex returned to the apartment. The door was unlocked, just like it always was when he came back. But when he stepped inside, the air felt different. He could sense something was off. Lyra was sitting on the couch, her eyes fixed on the window, her expression tense. Alex immediately knew something had changed. Lyra, he asked softly, his heart beginning to race. What's wrong? She didn't turn to him at first. She just stared out the window, her hands tightly gripping the edges of the couch. They found me, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex froze. The words hung in the air, heavy and terrifying. Who? Who found you? The people who've been looking for me, Lyra said, her voice trembling now. They followed me here. I thought I was safe. I thought I could hide for a while, but I was wrong. Rush slashed through Alex. He couldn't imagine who these people were, but he knew one thing: he wasn't going to let them take Lyra. Are they close? He asked, his voice steady but filled with urgency. Lyra nodded, her eyes wide with terror. I don't know, but they'll come. They always do. Alex's mind raced. He couldn't let this happen. Not to Lyra, not after everything she had been through. He had to act quickly. We can't stay here. Not for long, Alex said, his voice firm now. We need to leave. We'll figure out a plan, get out of the city, lay low until we know what to do next. Lyra stood up slowly, her face pale. I don't want to drag you into this. You've already done so much for me. I don't know what to do. You don't have to do this alone, Alex said, his voice filled with conviction. You're not alone anymore, remember? He took a step closer to her, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the weight of the situation, the danger that was coming for them, but he wasn't afraid. Not with her by his side. Lyra's eyes shimmered with tears, and for the first time, she allowed herself to show the fear that had been hidden behind her strong, silent exterior. I can't stay here, but I don't know where to go. I don't know how to hide from them. They won't stop until they get what they want. Alex gently reached out and took her hand. I'll protect you. I won't let them hurt you. We'll figure this out together, I promise. Could feel the fear in her hand, the way she trembled beneath his touch. But at the same time, there was a glimmer of hope in her eyes. She trusted him, even though she had no reason to, and that trust meant everything to him. We'll leave tonight, Alex said. I know a place outside the city. It's a long shot, but it's safe. We can hide there until we figure out our next move. Lyra nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Alex didn't respond. He didn't need to. He was already making plans in his head how they would leave, where they would go, what they would need. What's all happening so fast, but he had no choice. Couldn't let her face this alone as they packed what little they had. Alex tried to keep his focus, blocking out the fear that gnawed at him. He had to be strong for both of them. Lyra had already been through too much. She couldn't do this on her own, and neither could he. They were in this together now, whether they liked it or not. Once everything was packed, Alex took one last look around the apartment. It felt wrong to leave it behind, to run from the life he had fought so hard to build. But there was no time to dwell on it. They had to go, and they had to go now. As they left the apartment, Alex made sure the door was locked behind them. His heart was racing, his mind filled with plans and fears. Every sound in the hallway seemed too loud. Every passing footstep felt like someone was watching them. But he stayed focused, guiding Lyra down the stairs and out into the night. The streets were quiet, empty at this hour, and that was a small comfort. Alex didn't know how far they would have to go or how long they would be on the run, but for the first time since he met Lyra, he felt a sense of purpose. He had a reason to fight now, something worth protecting. Lyra walked beside him, her face pale but determined. She had been through so much already, but she wasn't giving up. Not now. Not while Alex was by her side, as they made their way through the darkened city. Alex knew that this was just the beginning. There were dangers ahead. Sure. But there was one thing that kept him going. Lyra. And as long as she was with him, he would fight with everything he had to keep her safe. The night had come quickly, bringing with it the cold winds that swept through the narrow streets of the city. Alex and Lyra moved swiftly, trying to keep their heads down and stay out of sight. Every step they took felt like it brought them closer to danger, and Alex couldn't shake the feeling that someone, somewhere, was watching them. They had left the city behind, hoping to find safety in the quiet outskirts, but every moment felt uncertain. The road ahead was long. The shadows that loomed behind them seemed darker with each passing minute. "You think they'll follow us here?" Lyra asked, her voice soft, but filled with worry. "I don't know," Alex replied, his tone just as uncertain. "But we can't stay in the city any longer. They'll be looking for us. The best chance we have is to lay low for now, find a place to hide until we can figure out what to do next." Lyra glanced around nervously, her eyes darting from one shadow to the next. She had never felt more out of place than she did right now. This world, this planet, was so different from the one she had come from. And now, after everything she had gone through, it seemed like there was no way out. "Alex. I'm sorry for dragging you into this," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You've already done so much. You didn't have to help me." Alex shook his head, his hand reaching out to steady her as they walked. "You didn't drag me into anything. I chose to help you. I don't care what happens. I'm not leaving." "You," Lyra looked at him, her eyes softening with gratitude. "You're not like anyone I've met. You don't even know what I've been through. But you're still here." "I don't need to know everything," Alex said quietly. "I just know that you need help, and that's enough for me." They walked in silence for a few minutes, the tension between them thick in the air. Alex could feel the weight of the world pressing down on both of them. He wasn't sure how much longer they could keep running, how long they could stay one step ahead of whoever was after Lyra. He had no plan, no clear idea of what to do next. All he knew was that he couldn't give up on her. Not now. Not after everything she had trusted him with. "We'll figure it out," Alex said, trying to reassure both of them. "Just keep going, and we'll find a way to stop them." Lyra nodded, but her eyes were distant, filled with worry. "I don't want to drag you any deeper into this, Alex. It's dangerous. The people I'm running from, they'll stop. At nothing, they won't just let me go." Alex stopped walking and turned to face her, placing both hands on her shoulders. "I'm not afraid of them," he said, his voice firm. "More afraid of losing you. I don't know why, but I can't let you face this alone. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Lyra's eyes filled with emotion as she looked up at him. "But what if you get hurt? What if you die because of me?" Alex shook his head, refusing to believe that. That's not going to happen. I'll make sure of it. She looked at him for a long moment, as if searching for something in his eyes. Finally she nodded, her expression softening. I don't know how to thank you for everything. You've given me hope, Alex. I never thought I'd find someone like you. Alex smiled gently, though a part of him felt uneasy. He couldn't help but wonder what would happen next. They were already so far from everything Alex knew, and he had no idea how much farther they would need to go to escape from whoever was after Lyra. They continued on, the road ahead still uncertain. But Alex kept his focus on one thing: Lyra's safety. He couldn't let anything happen to her, no matter the cost. A few hours later, they reached a small abandoned farmhouse on the outskirts of town. The building was old and run down, the windows cracked, and the roof had seen better days. But it would have to do for now. It wasn't much, but it would provide some shelter from the cold. Is this it? Lyra asked, her voice quiet as they approached the door. This is it, Alex replied, nodding. We'll stay here tonight. It's not much, but it's safer than being out in the open. They entered the house, the floor creaking beneath their feet as they made their way inside. The place was dusty, with broken furniture scattered around. But it was empty and abandoned, which meant they would be safe here for a while. I'll take the first watch, Alex said, turning to Lyra. You should rest. We don't know how long we'll be here, but I'll keep an eye out for any signs of trouble. Lyra looked at him, her expression conflicted. But what if we'll be okay? Alex interrupted gently. We just need to stay calm and stay safe. Rest for now. I'll watch over you. Lyra nodded, though she still looked uneasy. She set her bag down in the corner and sank into the dusty chair, her body weary from the long hours of running. She closed her eyes, but the weight of everything that had happened, everything that was still to come, was too much to bear. As Alex sat by the door, his eyes scanning the darkness outside, he knew that the next few hours would be critical. They had no idea how close their enemies were, and they had no plan beyond getting through the night. But Alex was determined. He had come too far, and he would do whatever it took to keep Lyra safe. The night in the abandoned farmhouse passed in uneasy silence. Alex sat by the window, his eyes constantly scanning the dark, waiting for any signs of danger. His mind raced, going over the plans he had made, or rather, the lack of plans. They had to keep moving. They couldn't stay here forever. But where would they go? What would happen when Lyra's enemies found them? Lyra slept on the chair near the corner of the room. She was still, her breath steady, but even in sleep, Alex could see the tension in her face. It wasn't just the fear of the people chasing. Hurt was something deeper. She had been through so much, and no matter how hard Alex tried to protect her, he couldn't erase the past that haunted her. As the hours passed, Alex's thoughts grew more desperate. He couldn't keep running forever. They needed help, but who could they trust? Lyra had already made it clear that there were people out there who wouldn't hesitate to hurt them to get what they wanted. What if they were already too far gone? What if this was the end? Stop it, Alex muttered to himself, rubbing his eyes. We'll figure it out. His thoughts were interrupted by a quiet noise. Lyra shifted in her sleep, her body moving slightly as if she was having a bad dream. Alex's heart skipped a beat, and he stood up, moving toward her. He didn't know what had been going on in her mind, but he could tell it wasn't good. Lyra. He whispered gently, kneeling beside her. She stirred, her eyes flickering open. For a moment, she didn't recognize him. But when her gaze locked onto his, she blinked a few times, as if waking from a fog. Are you okay? Alex asked, his voice soft. Lyra took a deep breath, sitting up slowly. Her face was pale, and there was a deep sadness in her eyes. I didn't mean to fall asleep like that, she said, her voice tired. I can't stop thinking about everything. I know, Alex said, sitting down beside her. I can't stop thinking about it either, but you're here. We're safe for now. We'll figure out what to do next. She shook her head slowly, her eyes filled with doubt. But what if we don't? What if we can't outrun them forever? Alex reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll face it together. I won't let anything happen to you. Lyra didn't say anything at first, her gaze distant. But after a moment, she nodded quietly. I don't know why you're doing this for me, she whispered. You don't owe me anything. I'm just a stranger to you. Alex looked at her, his heart heavy with the weight of the situation. You're not a stranger, he said. You're not just some alien I met on the street. You're someone who needs help. I can't turn my back on you. Lyra turned to look at him then, her expression softer, though still full of uncertainty. I don't deserve your kindness. After everything I've done, said, I don't think I'm worth saving. You don't have to earn my help, Alex said firmly. No one has to. You've been through too much already. And no matter what happens next, you're not alone anymore. Lyra stayed quiet, but Alex could see the conflict in her eyes. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust him, but she was scared. And who could blame her? She had lost everything. And now she was relying on a stranger to help her. We'll figure it out, Alex repeated, his voice gentle but determined. I know it's scary, but I'm not going to let them take you. We're stronger than this. For the first time since they had met, Lyra seemed to relax a little. She leaned back against the chair, closing her eyes for a moment. Know what was going on in her mind, but he could see the weight lifting off her shoulders. Just a little bit. You're right, she said quietly after a long pause. I can't keep running forever, but maybe for once I can stop being afraid. Alex smiled at her, feeling a warmth spread through him. Maybe, just maybe, they could do this. Maybe they could fight back against the people who were after her and give her a new start, a real chance at a life free from fear. We'll figure it out, Alex said again, though now his words carried more conviction. Don't have to do this alone. We'll take it one step at a time, and we'll make it through. For a moment, there was silence between them. Then Lyra stood up slowly, her gaze firm. I'm not running anymore. I'm not hiding. I'll fight for my future. I'll fight for both of us. Alex nodded, impressed by her newfound resolve. That's the spirit, eh? We can't change the past, but we can control what happens next. They stood together in the dim light of the farmhouse, the weight of the world still pressing down on them. But now there was a spark of hope between them. They didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, they both believed that they could face it. Together, Alex walked to the window, glancing outside. The night was still, the moon casting long shadows across the fields. It was quiet, but Alex knew it wouldn't last. People after Lyra would come eventually. But that didn't matter now. What mattered was that they had each other. I won't let you down, Alex said, turning back to her. You haven't, Lyra replied, her voice steady. Not yet. And with that, they made a pact, not just to survive, but to fight for. A future they could build together. No matter what came next, they would face it as allies, as partners, and as friends.